Most American holidays today are not about history. They're not about truth, culture. They're about consumerism, spending, and definitely keeping people distracted. And the stories behind them are oversimplified. They're definitely rewritten or flat out sanitized. And the pressure to celebrate is marketed. It's not meaningful anymore. But here's what caught my attention. Here's why I say this. We're 2 days past November 19th. And I had no idea that it was International Men's Day. And the only reason why I'm even bringing it up is because of what it represents, or better yet, what it exposes. But before I get into it, raise your hand. Leave it in the comments if you were celebrated as a man or just for being a man. Raise your hand if you even knew it was International Men's Day. I guarantee you there'll be no hands raised. Every holiday gets shoved down your throat. Every holiday gets a commercial, a hashtag, a discount code, a parade. But when it comes to men, silence. Even Father's Day isn't celebrated in the manner in which Mother's Day is celebrated. Not a word from the government institutions, not a word from public officials. It's not even on the freaking calendar. I had to check. But International Women's Day is. And that's exactly why I'm addressing it today. So why does International Men's Day get ignored? I think it's 3 reasons, and none of them are accidental. The first one is, in my opinion, would be the most important, is that masculinity isn't marketable. Crisis is. Corporations don't profit from strong men. Why? Because strong men don't need antidepressants, dating apps, alcohol every weekend, endless entertainment. We don't need self-help books. Strong men aren't confused. We're not anxious. And we're not dependent, but weak, confused, uncertain men, they spend money. Smart men, strong men, we don't. So why would these institutions celebrate the one thing that makes men strong, stable, disciplined, and independent? The short answer is they won't. Celebrating men goes against the current narrative. That's my second point. Because right now, the system pushes men are the problem. Masculinity is toxic. Men have more privilege. Men need to step aside and stop leading. If government officials publicly celebrated International Men's Day, they'd be accused of sexism. They'd be attacked by activists out in the street, dragged on social media, pressured by corporate freaking sponsors. So the safest move for them is silence. They know exactly what would happen if they said, men matter. My last point is society benefits from men being invisible. It's sad, but it's the truth. A society is easier to control men that are unheard, uncelebrated. They feel they have no cultural identity. They have no role. They feel disposable. They feel ashamed of even being a man. Because when you remove the respect men once had, you remove the backbone of society. You remove the protectors. You remove the stabilizers. You remove the men who stand up and say, enough. Enough with this bullshit. A population with feminine men is a population that cannot resist anything, politically, culturally, or even socially. So, of course, International Men's Day is ignored. Of course, it's not on the calendars. Of course, no government says a word. The silence is the message. So the bottom line is International Men's Day isn't ignored by accident. It's ignored because acknowledging men would force society to admit that men are struggling today. They'd be forced to admit that men are needed. Masculinity is essential. Fatherhood matters. Boys need more guidance than ever. Families need strong male leadership. And that goes against the agenda we're living in right now. That's what I wanted to bring up before I play this next video of, what's her name? Helen Andrews. And I just stumbled across it, just happened to come across my timeline. And I just wanted to play a few more minutes. Afterwards, you can go out and you can watch the rest of her speech. I thought it was compelling. And there's a lot of truth to it. So take a listen.
I have referred several times so far to feminization without defining what that means. I'll have a lot to say about it in just a moment. But if you want to put it in a single sentence, you could say that feminization equals wokeness. Everything you think of as wokeness is simply an epiphenomenon of demographic feminization. Think about all the things that wokeness means. Valuing empathy over rationality, safety over risk, conformity and cohesion over competition and hierarchy. All of these things are privileging the feminine over the masculine. So if you have ever wondered why wokeness appeared out of nowhere when it did, that is my hypothesis, that all of the institutions that began admitting women in the 1970s eventually got enough women that they were able to reorient them. For example, women are consistently less supportive of free speech than men in surveys asking which is more important, protecting free speech or preserving an inclusive society. Approximately 2/3 of men say free speech, and approximately 2/3 of women say inclusive society. In moral reasoning, the traditional way of phrasing the difference between men and women is to say that women have an ethics of caring and men have an ethics of justice. In making a moral judgment, men will ask, what are the rules and what are the facts? Women tend to be more interested in context and relationships. So let's apply that to wokeness. When James Damore wrote his famous, or I should say notorious memo for Google, arguing that female underrepresentation in the hard sciences might not be the result of bias and prejudice, no one even attempted to argue that he was wrong on the facts. The reason that he was fired was because the things he had written might make his female coworkers feel bad. Or consider the Kavanaugh hearings. The masculine position was to say that maybe something bad happened to you, but if you do not have evidence, then we can't allow you to ruin a man's life and career over it. The feminine position was to say, how can you talk about rules of evidence? Can't you see she's crying? Now, to be clear, many women were revolted by the way the Kavanaugh hearings played out. In fact, the very best book on the Kavanaugh hearings was written by 2 women, Molly Hemingway and Carrie Severino. But a political system in which men predominate will tend to operate according to rules of facts and objectivity, and one in which women predominate will tend to operate by the rules of emotions and subjective facts.
How do you disagree with that? And I remember the Kavanaugh hearing. It was crazy. Look, what she's saying is basically this. You can engineer whatever agenda you want, but you cannot enforce it unless institutions operate emotionally instead of rationally. And emotional governance becomes dominant when women become the majority. That's not sexist. That's demographic psychology. So I'm going to leave that there. What say you? Did any of you know, and like I said before, was celebrated for International Men's Day? Absolutely not. Look, it's Friday. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Leave it in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.